Seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
All right, welcome into another episode of the Vegas Squares podcast. We are talking NFL draft, the first couple of rounds, and their fantasy impact on the 2020 season. I got John with me again. You'll remember him from the fantasy football show that we started at the beginning of last year. John, what's going on, man?
Not much. Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
How's life treating you with all this?
It's good. I mean, dealing with no sports, just trying to stay as normal as possible.
Yeah.
Kids drive me crazy, but other than that, I'm good.
I believe it. Trust me. I know. That's such a crazy word now in our vocabulary, normal, to think no sports, no outdoor activities, or not outdoor, but no, activities outside your house, movies, casinos, etc. It's, you're right. Normal is a very subjective word and in this point in our lives. But we came here to talk NFL and fantasy impacts. We just had the NFL draft. There were some great picks that hopefully will pan out, and there were some head scratchers, which I know as I say, I know you're an Eagles fan. I've talked to a few of them about the Jalen Hurts pick, and I've gotten everything from love the pick to, like, I see people throwing things across their walls on social media. So what's your thoughts on Jalen Hurts?
I'm in the middle. I understand the pick, but again, I probably would not have done it. And
would
what
you
I mean
have done it
by
in the third or fourth round?
Probably.
Yeah.
Because we have to look, even though Carson Wentz played 16 games last year, he's only played 6 quarters of playoff football in his career. He's never finished a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
3 straight years in a row, he's either missed the end of the season or was hurt in the last game. So injuries,
a solid point.
It's something real. And I think with Hurt's skill set, you can find ways to implement him. I was talking to a really good friend of mine. There's 2 ways Howie Roseman looks like a genius. And first way is, let's just say next year or the year after, Carson Wentz gets hurt. Week 9, week 10, whatever. Jalen Hurts finishes the season and has his Nick Foles moment, or even wins a couple playoff games, etc.
Mm-hmm.
You turn around and next year, everybody's in love with him. You flip Jalen Hurts for 2 first-round picks. You look like a genius.
Sure.
Or even in that same, where if he takes over and he's the next Patrick Mahomes or he's Deshaun, he's still on a rookie deal. Then you trade Carson Wentz for, if you can trade Sam Bradford for a first round and a third rounder, somebody will take a flyer on a franchise quarterback and you trade Carson Wentz for a first. And you get rid of $118 million contract for a quarterback on a rookie deal. So either one of those scenarios, Howie Roseman looks like a genius.
Sure. I think that's where a lot of the people who agree with the pick lie. I don't mind the pick either. I'm like you said, kind of in the middle with it. I don't have any emotional connection to the Philadelphia Eagles, except for negative ones for beating the Patriots a couple of years ago. But
the year
right.
Carson Wentz got hurt.
Yeah, that's another year Carson Wentz got hurt. But I had Jalen Hurts as a 3rd or 4th round pick. So I was just mostly shocked at the timing of which he went in the draft. But, these guys scout, these guys talk to each other. Obviously, they're way more in the know than I am. So for him to go in the 2nd round, while baffling to me, must have been higher on many, many other people's boards than just mine.
No, trust me, I was in shock when it happened. And looking at how the rest of the draft panned out, other moves that they made as far as trades, like I said, I understand it. And, the 2nd round, not every 2nd rounder pans out.
Right.
So it's not like you took a top 5 pick on this kid. You took a 2nd round pick. sometimes they flame out, they get traded, things happen.
Sure.
So if Jalen Hurts, is insane in preseason and, Wentz misses 2 or 3 games and he steps in and he plays well and you end up trading him to another team for way better than the draft position that you took him, then it's a great move. If, Carson Wentz gets hurt again, or you have the Andrew Luck type situation where he has another concussion or 2
Mm-hmm.
and decides, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. At 28, 29 years old, you have an insurance policy.
Sure.
Last year the Eagles got caught with their pants down in the playoffs. As soon as Wentz got hurt, you had a 41-year-old Josh McCown trying to play football. It just didn't. They weren't ready. They didn't. One of the most important people on your team is your backup quarterback. He is the best insurance policy you have.
Yeah.
So, using a second-round pick on, worst case, a
Your
great backup.
Quarterback.
Yeah. Or, 5 years, 3-4 years down the line, this is a numbers game and you can flip Carson Wentz and you take somebody you're paying $3 million to instead of 30 and you can free that money up everywhere else. It's also something to look at.
It's true. It's kind of the new wave of the NFL. And especially with the Taysom Hill factor that seems to be popular in New Orleans, that could be something for the
No, yeah, I definitely think he sees the field this year. Maybe it's 2 or 3 plays a game.
Move your thumb.
Oh, my bad. Maybe it's 2 or 3 plays a game. But I definitely think Hurts sees the field this year.
Fair enough. All right, well, we are sponsored by 12 Ounce Sports Radio, 12 Ounce Sports Network, where you can catch them on 12ozsportsradio.com. Also sponsored by Seat Giant, where you can use promo code 12 Ounce Sports for discounted sporting event, concert, and theater tickets. All right, well, we talked about Jalen Hurts. We'll get into him a little bit more later on in the draft, but we're going to start with the quarterbacks, as we mentioned before. Obviously, Joe Burrow went number 1. We're going to talk about the fantasy impact of a lot of these rookies because John is the fantasy guru. I play a lot of fantasy leagues, and he's the one that's been lately giving me the most fits. So I figured he'd be the perfect
remember
guy.
I told nobody, stay away from David Johnson. Nobody listened.
I listened. I didn't want anything to do with that guy. Although in Houston, I'm curious about him, but we'll talk about that whenever we have an NFL season. But
yeah.
All right, so the quarterbacks. We'll start with that position. It's the most important position in football. It's the most important position in sports. Joe Burrow was the overall number 1 pick. He was the consensus number 1 pick. I didn't see anyone else with any other name on their board except for Joe Burrow, QB, LSU.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine with Dalton being gone with the Dallas Cowboys, that Joe Burrow is the starter from day 1.
Yes, I think so. It is the Joe show in Cincinnati.
Yeah, if Zach Taylor is going to roll with Ryan Finley for a couple games, he's just asking for his walking papers at this point.
No.
So Joe Burrow gets in.
Swim.
Yeah, Joe Burrow gets in. He's going number 1. From a fantasy perspective, in your rankings, what do you see or expect out of him in this first year? Remember, they've got a lot of holes on offense and defense. AJ Green is a big question mark right now. Obviously, when he comes back, if he decides to come back fully motivated, he's a super dangerous target to have. They just got a 6'4" receiver in T. Higgins. Joe Mixon out of the backfield. I mean, he's definitely got the tools to be successful in Cincinnati, but that's a very hard division. But in fantasy football, we only worry about the stats.
That is true. Only thing that could – I see Joe Burrow middle of the pack, maybe a little worse than middle of the pack. I don't think he's going to throw for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. Not in that offense, not with that offensive line. I see Joe Mixon getting a lot of work this year.
Sure.
A lot of work, because the easiest way to save a quarterback with a shitty offensive line is just hand the ball off. Screens. I see, like I said, Mixon getting a lot of work. If I had to throw numbers, 3,200 yards, 20 to 22 touchdowns, 15 interceptions.
15,
decent.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and that, minimum.
Ooh.
I mean,
he's going to be down a lot.
In
that's
that
for
division,
sure.
You got to think about it. That division, you're playing Baltimore twice. You're playing Pittsburgh twice. you have defense. They're going to come at him.
Yeah.
They're going to come at him with everything they have, and it's not going to be an easy road for him, especially with a suspect offensive line. I see 15 interceptions minimum.
Yeah, I mean, other than the interceptions, that puts him, at least according to last year's stats, that puts him, you're right in the middle of the pack, actually between 15 and 16. He would fall right there in between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Gardner Minshew based on NFL.com fantasy stats. But you know what? You're right. I mean, if he's going to throw 15 picks, that's where the tough one comes in. Fitzpatrick threw 13. He had 3,400 yards, 20 touchdowns, 13 picks. So he also had 4 rushing touchdowns. Burrow's legs might be an interesting kind of a wrinkle. He can take off if he needs to, but
True.
You're right.
He's going to have to next year.
With the offensive line, either he needs to get out of the pocket quick, or it's going to be a long season for him as well. I mean, Mixon is definitely huge for Burrow's development because Mixon can catch passes out of the backfield better, almost as good as anybody else in the league. So dinks and dunks are going to be huge for them. They're going to be down late. So obviously, our 2 favorite words in fantasy football, garbage time. Burrow might be a key factor in that area right there. So I don't know. I see Tua.
True. That's also where some of his picks could.
Yeah, that could be where some of the picks come too. I'm curious to see the rushing yards on him. I don't know if he's quite like Josh Allen, but I could see somewhere around 150 to 250 with 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns out of him.
For Joe Burrow?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. Definitely. I mean, he's not going to put up, like I said, he's not going to do what Tua or, he's not Deshaun Watson. He's not Cam Newton. He's not going to do anything like that.
I mean, if you look at his skill set,
he can move.
Go ahead.
No. I'm listening.
Yeah, so if you look at his skill set, if our predictions are correct, especially in the rushing category, I mean, if we say 250 yards rushing, that puts him in Dak Prescott territory, Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston, Fitzpatrick, Carson Wentz,
Yeah, in that range, yeah.
And you have
he's definitely mobile. I definitely think he's going to have to use his legs, so hopefully he can slide.
True. Hopefully he can take a hit because he's going to be taking a few of those. You mentioned Tua, and we talked about Ryan Fitzpatrick. My assumption is that Tua will not start the season.
Well, questions on his hip and other things, and with Fitzpatrick, I agree. I think he sees the field by midseason.
Now, do you think he sees it because he's the 5th pick in the draft? He's going to be forced on there, and because I'm drawing a blank on the coach's name, Brian Flores.
Yeah.
I would imagine he's got a long leash, but who knows in the NFL with your jobs nowadays. You think he's going to be forced on the field? Because Ryan Fitzpatrick, again, he's going to be 38 now at this point.
Yeah, but Fitzpatrick is infamous for 3 amazing games.
Yeah, exactly.
And he'll play 2 of the worst games you've ever seen in your life, and you wonder why he's even a quarterback.
I'm just curious because the thing is, without that hip injury, my guess is Tua. I mean, before the season last year, the college football season, Tua was the consensus number 1 overall pick. It was tanked for Tua, and then the hip injury. I don't know the severity of it. Obviously, we know he had surgery on it, but how
I don't think it's that crazy for someone to risk the number 5 pick in the draft. I think he's fine. I just think it's more of a testament of the year Joe Burrow had, more so than what Tua did wrong or his injury. I even think if Tua was healthy throughout the entire, if he didn't get hurt, I still think Burrow would have been number 1. He had one of the greatest college football seasons of all time.
Yes, that
and
is
he
correct.
has all the measures.
But he had one season.
Yeah, but Tua had what, 1.5, 2?
2.5, really.
But then you also have to look at the perspective of, and this is just me, I'm not huge on 6-foot quarterbacks. I mean, Drew Brees is an anomaly to
Russell Wilson, yeah, they're not common.
Exactly. So with Tua only being 6 foot and him, being so dependent on his mobility as well, as being able to throw down the field, I just think with the way the NFL is set up, if Joe Burrow had the same season, he still would have been a number 1 pick.
Okay, that's fair. The question I have really, as far as my pause on wanting to insert Tua into the lineup is, even with Tom Brady gone out of the AFC East, do we really think the Dolphins are challengers this year? I mean,
They surprised a lot of people. They're not that bad.
They're not.
You know,
but, I mean, the Bills, I would say, are better than them. The Patriots, if Stidham's any kind of good, they're probably still better than the Dolphins.
Mhm.
The Jets, no comment. I really don't know what to expect out of them. On paper, they should be better than the Dolphins. So my question is, you run the tires off of Ryan Fitzpatrick one more year, inserting Tua into situations set up for him to succeed mentally, and 2021, that's your guy. It just seems to me that would be you make sure that the guy's fully healthy. Now, if you're inserting him, he can always be injured on any play, but finding a way to get this guy NFL game reps that aren't necessarily game reps that are imperative to be on his shoulders to succeed right away. Because sometimes that's the toughest thing. Not everybody can handle that. What do you have? Peyton Manning is one case, and then you have Mitch Trubisky on the other side. Not everybody's equipped to handle pressure immediately. And I don't know Tua, personally, obviously, but to me, he's never had, at least at the college level, and I would assume high school, he's never had adversity. He's going to have it in Miami the first year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you mix adversity with distractions. The guy didn't even play
4 games at Alabama.
True. But, I mean, you mix adversity with the distractions of South Beach. I just think, like I said, I think he's in by week 8. I think the only way he's not is if Ryan Fitzpatrick is having the season of his career and the Dolphins are leading the division, and there's no way to bench him at that moment. That's the only way I think he's not inserted by week 8.
And practically, I agree. And in real life, I agree with you. I think that he's going to be inserted at some point. Ryan Fitzpatrick is just basically a placeholder at this point until Tua and the coaching staff believe he's ready. If I'm Brian Flores, and obviously I would have to talk to the staff or to the front office and get as much confidence in me as I can, but I would find a way to not put him on the field as much as possible to make sure he's fully healthy, make sure he's fully adapted to that lifestyle. And I put him in situations where, either I'm way behind or way ahead, which is more likely the behind part in Miami. But yeah, and you're right. I mean, if somehow, Ryan Fitzpatrick is 7-1 or 8-0, then obviously you can't bench him. You can't move him. But I find a way to make this Ryan swan song and save to get him as ready as much as possible for the 2021 season.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, you think about the era of even 10, 15 years ago when you drafted quarterbacks number 1. They sat a year. McNabb or 2. McNabb, Rodgers, they were drafted. You had somebody in place. You had, a fill-in. Let them sit for a year. Let them learn the playbook. Let them learn the speed of the NFL. And then, you put them out there and they're technically more prepared. Nowadays, it's the norm. I mean, when you draft a kid number 1 or, top 10, they're expected to play.
Correct. And I think the reason for that is because the leash on coaches has become so much tighter. I mean, coaches are getting canned. Look at the Cleveland Browns. They went through 4 coaches in 3 years. I mean, there's no, I guess, leeway. Yeah. There's no leeway for these coaches sometimes. And I mean, obviously there's more factors than just your quarterback's not starting, but I mean, Eli Manning didn't start immediately. Same thing.
No.
Phillip Rivers didn't start. Drew Brees was in San Diego for a year before Phillip Rivers took the reins. Big Ben.
Aaron Rodgers sat for 2 full years behind Brett Favre.
Exactly. And we'll talk about Jordan Love. That's another one that's fun here. I think the same thing with Justin Herbert. He was the next guy picked by the Chargers. I don't think he should see the field this year. I think Tyrod Taylor is a much better quarterback than Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
And
I think unless Tyrod implodes, I think Herbert's going to get a full year on the bench.
And he should, whether he implodes or not. I think Tyrod Taylor, for better or for worse, should have this year, barring injury, obviously. But Justin Herbert is another guy I think needs. I don't expect him to see the field this year, good times or bad. I don't want him to. I think he needs the time to develop, which is crazy because if he would have come out his junior year, McShay had him as the number 1 quarterback taken. It's crazy that he regressed. I mean, I don't know if he necessarily regressed or the fact that, like you said, Joe Burrow just went whoop.
He did. I mean, he just because when you have that kind of season with him having the measurables, the height, the arm strength, everything, and him testing the way he did on top of the numbers, he had to go number one. Will he? Is it a lock? He'll be the best quarterback out of this draft? No.
No.
You never know. Who knows?
And the thing is, if Washington was picking number one, then he wouldn't have been the first player taken. Yeah, true. Unless they traded out.
I'll say, even though I don't know, I'm not sold on Dwayne Haskins myself.
Oh, I'm not either. But how do you? I mean, unless you're the Arizona Cardinals, how do you dump your first round pick from last year? It was a quarterback.
That was crazy. Yeah. But
it looks to be the right decision for Arizona right now. So
it does. I get it.
Is Rosen still on the Dolphins?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Honestly,
I have to look that up because he's still in there too. I want to say he's not, but I could be wrong. Josh Rosen is still on the Dolphins. I mean, it's hard.
He may get a shot.
He just might.
He may get a shot. And if he comes in, and the thing for him is if he beats out Fitzpatrick for the starting job and plays well for 8 games or for a full season, then he'll sign somewhere else.
Yeah, he could set a market for himself for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he'll get a contract.
You want to play a fun game here? I'll tell you. I'll pick an over under. Joe Burrow's career 6.5 years.
Joe Burrow?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, over. No question.
Okay. Well, you could say the same with Trubisky, and he might not make it 5. So.
True. Even if you think about it, Andy Dalton's on what, year 8?
I had a
range.
Andy Dalton 9 years in the league.
Yeah, and he's got at least another 4 or 5 as a backup.
I thought Andy Dalton got a bad rap. I think he's a better quarterback than he's given credit for. But we talked about that.
But he's not going to win you a championship. You have to have an amazing team around him to where he doesn't mess it up.
I know. I was kind of hoping he landed in New England.
Yeah. Well, so does New England ride it out, or do they get Cam, or what do they do?
You know what? Everything I've seen, Cam's not out of the question, but this was a quarterback's draft with a lot of the guys. You had Jalen Hurts, you had Jacob Eason, you had Jake Fromm.
I heard a rumor that the Eagles felt like they had to do it there because New England wanted Hurts and was going to take him with their second round.
I would have been okay with Jalen Hurts there. You know what? The only guy in the league that I don't question his draft picks because they never make sense to me is Bill Belichick. Coming up in the second round to get a guy out of a school I thought was in France, who knows? You know what I mean? So I did taking 2 tight ends back to back from who the fuck knows? It's gotten results.
The year they drafted Gronk and the Murderer the same year, right?
If not the same year, pretty close. And I've never understood why Belichick never went back to that. I don't know if it's because he couldn't. You could have paired Gronk up with anybody. I thought when they got Dwayne Allen, I thought they were going to do it all over again, but that never panned out. But back to Herbert, I don't think he should see the field. I think Tyrod Taylor, this might be his last audition in the NFL.
Yeah.
And the Chargers, when healthy, the Chargers are a solid team.
They are because their defense is good.
Correct. Derwin James is one of my favorite players.
Yeah, their defense is really good. And, Eckler's not – he's solid. He put up crazy fantasy numbers last year. Mm-hmm. They've got decent weapons around them. The tight end – yeah, good receivers. Tight end's really good when he's not hurt. He gets hurt a lot though. But no, it's there. But I see San Diego being a fringe playoff team. So I don't think unless there's a situation where and to bring up the Eagles, they had Carson Wentz was ready to be sat that year. They had went out and spent a bunch of money on a fill-in quarterback, and then he came into camp and just memorized the playbook and was ready. Mm-hmm. And they end up, I forget who it was.
I'm trying to think too who that was because I remember that everybody was shocked that he was.
They just signed him from Kansas City. Chase Daniel. Chase Daniel was supposed to start, and Carson Wentz was going to wait a year, learn the system, and then they just cut him and it was like gave the keys to Carson Wentz day one. Unless, like I said, Herbert comes in and blows them away in camp, if they even have a camp, who knows when that's going to start.
Right.
So, but I definitely think he sits because San Diego's a a good team.
Yeah. And you got to think Anthony Lynn's maybe coaching for his job this year. I know, and maybe that's unfair because injuries have really.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I think
injuries have really held this team back.
True.
And Phillip Rivers isn't helping with 35 picks or how many he throws.
No, yeah, I've seen some of his throws, and I'm like, what the?
I would imagine a lot of those throws that he made, maybe trying to throw the ball away or throw up a prayer, Tyrod could probably run. So it might be definitely a different offensive style this year. I like the Chargers as a dark horse if Tyrod Taylor can play well. But Herbert won't see the field, in my opinion.
I don't think so either.
All right, the head scratcher of the draft, Jordan Love to the Packers. Now, we know his fantasy impact should be nothing this year, but Aaron Rodgers has been hurt 2 out of the last 3 years and hasn't played a full season. Obviously, we're not going to hold him for fantasy purposes. We're not going to draft him.
No.
But the tools that he possesses, translating to the NFL, is he someone that's a waiver wire pickup should Aaron Rodgers go down?
See, I think they did the pick. I think Jordan Love's 2 years away from being ready to show his skill set in the NFL.
Agreed.
Whether it completely translates or not, I don't think he's mentally ready. I don't think he's physically ready. I think Aaron Rodgers is fine for 2 years, and I think Green Bay is fine because all they have to do is say, well, you drafted Jordan Love. Why is he on? It's been a year and a half. Why is he still on the bench? All they have to do is say, we did it with Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They can get that forgiveness because it worked before. So if Rodgers at 36 years old, if they let him play for 2 more years and then let him go, or then trade him to someone else and then bring Jordan Love in, it's the same thing that happened with Brett Favre. It's literally deja vu. So I don't see how – I see Aaron Rodgers being a little butthurt, but basically Jordan Love is him 15 years ago.
Yeah, but, if you're a very egotistical, centric person like Aaron Rodgers, I assume is, what happened 15 years ago, that don't matter anymore. We're way beyond that. It's happening to me now because I remember Brett Favre was like, I'm not mentoring this guy. And without saying it, it feels like Aaron Rodgers because he came out and publicly said, I don't care who you bring here. They're not getting my job.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that doesn't mean 2 years.
Aaron Rodgers could ball out for this year and next year. And then you have a team like maybe the Patriots haven't found their guy.
Yeah.
And
but do you, if he's at 38 playing at an elite level, do you let him walk?
At 38, yeah.
Can Lightning strike twice with Rodgers and Love? That's wow.
If Love shows you everything, it's the Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning thing. Once Andrew Luck showed what he was, Peyton Manning was expendable.
But Andrew Love wasn't on the roster yet.
Well, when they drafted him,
yes.
Peyton was 38, 39? He was around that same age range.
Yeah, in that area for sure, and coming off of a major injury.
And now Indianapolis has Phillip Rivers.
I mean, you're talking about, yeah, I know. You're talking about making a decision on a guy. If at 38 years old is still playing look at Tom Brady at 38 years old. That was 5 years ago. They were winning Super Bowls.
Yeah, but he's in it. Tom Brady is a freak of nature.
But Aaron Rodgers seems to be following that path.
No, he's production has dipped the last couple of years. He's not the Aaron Rodgers of 6-7 years ago.
Of course he's
production wise. So if you can replace Aaron Rodgers at 38 with a 23-year-old cheaper option, why not?
Because I thought you look at a team who was, they got blown out in the NFC Championship, but they were in the NFC Championship, and they could have filled any of the holes that they had, and instead they filled QB2. It just didn't make sense.
You're looking for the future. You're looking for the future.
Again, I don't have a problem with the pick.
Look at then you're in the New England situation. Not that anyone could ever talk bad about New England. They're the greatest dynasty of this generation. But now that Tom Brady's left at 40-something years old, and you never I guess Garoppolo was supposed to be his replacement, but then Tom played longer, so you end up trading Jimmy G away. Now you literally have Nobody. And it's, do you
Well,
sign someone or do you roll the dice with someone that somebody's never heard of?
we know very little about Stidham, but you're right. I mean, it's a question mark right now.
And I just think Green Bay, it worked for them 15 years ago, and they don't want to be in that New England type situation. So, I mean,
agree.
I completely understand. I actually understand that pick more than a Jalen Hurts pick, and I understand that.
I just feel like if in 2-3 years you have Jordan Love, you're like, okay, he's ready. And you have a 38-year-old Aaron Rodgers who's still – maybe he wins – say he wins a Super Bowl in the next 2 years and still playing –
And you flip him.
What if Jordan Love flames out? And Aaron Rodgers has 3 more years.
You run that risk.
I know. I feel like that's something that you can lose your job over.
I mean, think of no one ever talks about how they kind of – Drew Brees was in his prime when they drafted Phillip Rivers.
Correct. But Drew Brees struggled until that last year.
And they shipped him away, and he became a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Correct.
So, but how many times do we hear people saying that because Phillip Rivers had a decent career? No one says that San Diego, was idiotic or moronic. We never hear that conversation. When you hear Drew Brees, you just think of him as a saint.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, Brees has got 1 ring mired in probably half his seasons of mediocrity. Statistically, no. But if you look at the New Orleans Saints seasons, it's a lot of 7 and 9s and 8 and 8s. Where when you had Phillip Rivers, when he had LT and the defense that they had when they were going perennially to the divisional round, the champion. I mean, they ran into the New England Patriots. I would take Drew Brees.
At the end of the day, 1 ring is all you need.
Okay, but what if Drew Brees stayed in San Diego and ran into Tom Brady every year? You're right. 1 ring is way better than no rings, 100%. But he might have no rings if he's the quarterback who – I mean, can we confirm that Drew Brees would have beaten Tom Brady on a regular basis? No.
No, I'm just using an example of.
But you're right. No, I hear you. The what if
having an established quarterback and drafting one in the first round when you already have that quarterback. It's not foreign. Teams do it all the time. Yes,
but Drew Brees had only been in the league 4 years. Aaron Rodgers has been in the league 15 years.
So it even makes more sense because
Aaron
Rodgers at 38 with injury issues, with declining production, like you said, if they see him every day, if they think he has 2 years max left, then get someone like I said, it's a crapshoot.
Correct.
Jordan Love is not coming into the league, even as highly touted as Patrick Mahomes, but he's definitely not coming in as the top overall quarterback. He's considered someone with all the talent in the world, but from a small school who hasn't really developed yet. So he needs a couple years to get that down anyway.
Sure.
So it's a perfect situation
for the organization. The 17 picks in the Mountain West Conference last year are a little concerning to me, but you're right. I mean, you get them into your system, you can mold them. I have no problem with the Jordan Love pick if he pans out in 3 years, ready to take over. That's fine. My issue with it is you were 1 game away from the Super Bowl, and you had a shot right there, especially in a draft full of wide receivers. You not only didn't take one in the first round, you did not take one in the entire draft.
I don't think wide receiver was their issue. I think it was more or less they couldn't stop San Francisco.
Well, it's fine, but who else can you throw to other than Devontae Adams? I mean, I know Alan Lazard and Jimmy Graham is gone. Not that he was really effective, last year anyways.
Is Geronimo Allison still there?
Yeah, Geronimo's still there, but he's hurt. Valdez-Scantling, is average. I just thought maybe getting – I love the T. Higgins at that pick. That when they traded up to get him, I thought they were going to get T. Higgins right there. But I was wrong. But
yes.
So, yeah, Love would be an interesting person on the waiver wire should Aaron Rodgers go down. And like we said, 2 out of the last 3 years, Aaron Rodgers has not played a full season.
With him being a project, I don't even know if he's going to be number 2 on the depth chart. It wouldn't shock me even if Aaron Rodgers went down that someone else would step in.
Let's see.
I don't think they're ready.
Right now.
I don't think Jordan Love sees the field at all this season, and I don't think they want him to.
Well, right now, ESPN has him as the number 2 quarterback, and the 3rd quarterback is Tim Boyle. Exactly. Who?
So maybe, yeah.
So, yeah, you have Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard, and, Devin Funchess could shine. That'd be an interesting pick. If they like Devin Funchess, maybe that's why they didn't go with a wide receiver.
He stinks.
I think so too. But
He's stunk for years.
all right. So we talked about Jalen Hurts. We talked about Jordan Love here. Jacob Eason and Jake Fromm shouldn't see the field this year. I wanted the Patriots to get Jake Fromm. There's something about him. He was a winner. He checked all the boxes to me.
Maybe Eason's Indianapolis, right?
Correct.
If Phillip Rivers flames out and he impresses, he could see by the end of the year. Because Phillip Rivers is no spring chicken either.
Well, the other question is with the Indianapolis Colts, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jacoby Brissett's still there too.
Still there.
So if now you're running 3 quarterbacks, all with expectations, I doubt we'll see Jacob Eason because if somehow Phillip Rivers
like I said, unless he comes in and he's Tom Brady, unless he's that good in camp or that good in practice, and like I said, they're at the end of the year and they're 2-8 or 3-9, and you want to give the kid a shot and there's no pressure on him. Maybe
that's what I didn't quite understand about the Colts. I mean, I'm trying to see their record last year. I want to say they were 8-8, but I like Jacoby Brissett. They were 7-9. So I don't know.
I think he's a career backup. I don't think they believe in him as a starting quarterback.
I mean, they must, because to sign him to an extension and then bring in Phillip Rivers
doesn't make sense. At what was Phillip Rivers, 73 or 74 years old?
I think he'll be 72 in September.
Yeah. At this juncture in their careers, I would probably go with Jacoby Brissett over Phillip Rivers. I saw the last couple of years.
I mean, that team now with Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, T.Y. Hilton, Zach Pascal, Marlon Mack, Jack Doyle. I don't think the quarterback position. I know, and I think the quarterback position is better with Jacoby Brissett there. And the thing is, you're right. If Phillip Rivers flames out, instead of putting Jacob Eason in, I say you put Jacoby Brissett in there to market him to other teams. True.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, and I don't think Fromm sees the field this year. And nor should he.
I agree. Unless Josh Allen gets hurt, and he hasn't yet. So, all right. So the first running back off the board to me was a bit of a surprise until I heard that Pat Mahomes wanted him. I thought maybe he was going to be second or third round. Clyde Edwards-Helaire goes to the Chiefs with the last pick in the first round. It's funny. I saw every single position player that was eligible for the draft for LSU got drafted. How crazy is that? Is that the best team of all time in college?
Maybe.
It's hard pressed. I mean, I'm not that old, but I remember watching Nebraska in '94 with Tommy Frazier, thinking that was the best team, and then USC with Leonard Bush.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
But you know what? I mean, this team is phenomenal, especially every single position eligible translated to the NFL, and they've got guys right behind them too that are ready to step up. But Edwards-Helaire had a great season. I like the way he plays. I was shocked a little bit where he was drafted, but going to the Chiefs, he seems to kind of fit the mold as a compliment to Damian Williams. They kind of make sense.
But as an Eagle faithful, I don't doubt Andy Reid in the draft.
Sure.
He just seems to know what he's doing. I'm glad, he finally got his first ring, but he drafts extremely well and has for 20-something years. That's just what he does. I mean, on both sides of the ball, from the LaShawn McCoys to the Donovan McNabbs to the Patrick Mahomes to the Brian Dawkins, like he drafts well. So if he knows that offense, if he thinks that he's a better fit than Swift would have been, or he fits perfectly to complement Damian Williams or whomever, I trust him.
So what do we expect fantasy-wise out of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, especially with Damian Williams there, all the trick plays, Pat Mahomes, they don't run the ball often, but they might now.
Well, Kareem Hunt was a fantasy beast when he was there his rookie year. Damian Williams has injury concerns as well. He's been in the league. I don't think he stays healthy enough or even has the pure talent to be an every down back. So I see really good numbers I wouldn't be shocked if this kid puts up double-digit touchdowns
Okay.
at all. With the platoon, I don't see him, being a contender to lead the league in rushing or anything like that. And I see Damian Williams being more used in the screen game than this kid, who has great hands. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not capable out of the backfield, but I just think Damian Williams will be utilized more as a pass catcher out of the backfield. So I see this kid 800 to 900 yards, 10 to 12 touchdowns.
Wow, on the ground, 10 to 12 touchdowns?
Yeah.
Very interesting. I'm looking at stats, at least in the first year, next year, 2020 season. He reminds me of a smaller but just as sturdy version of like Tevin Coleman. I feel like you have the potential, especially with that dynamic offense. I see something along the 600 with, 8 to 12 touchdowns, 600 rushing, 600 receiving, maybe 7 touchdowns on the ground, 5 through the air. I feel like if Damian Williams can stay healthy, he's going to be the number 1 guy, but that doesn't make Edwards-Helaire number 2. I feel like he's a 1A. He's definitely going to be a third down specialist. Eventually, I see him taking the job because I think he's a bulldozer. But for the 2020 season, I'm in the like 600 range. He almost reminds me of a McCaffrey. Now, the talent may not be there of a Christian McCaffrey, but again, he's a rookie. But I see something along the lines. I mean, Devontae Freeman.
You give him a little more credit catching passes out the backfield than I do, because Damian Williams does have capable hands, and he's done it in the NFL. I think, me personally, he'll be used that way more. I think this kid is a better pure runner than Damian Williams. So I see him getting more of the groundwork. So, but we'll see how Andy Reid does it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think there's going to be sets where they both line up in the backfield as well. I think we're done with Shady in Kansas City. Thanks for the memories, but he'll be an interesting prospect. I think he's one that could be exactly. I think the ceiling is probably 800-900 yards rushing, but I still see this guy with 500 or 600 yards receiving. It just seems to me like he's kind of a skinny scat bag. He's a buff guy though, but he's like, I don't know, he's like a little bowling ball, Maurice Jones-Drew style.
A little taller.
You talked about Swift going to Detroit. Now they've got Swift and Kerryon Johnson. Now, Kerryon Johnson has some injury concerns, but DeAndre Swift, I thought, was the best running. Let me preface this. Without the turnovers, I thought Jonathan Taylor was the best running back, but he can't hold on to the football. So that gave me the best pick would have been DeAndre Swift, and he went to the Detroit Lions. It doesn't seem to work for running backs outside of Barry Sanders in Detroit, but you gotta keep trying, right? Yeah,
got to keep putting him in there. I like Swift. I think he can take Kerryon's job. I don't think Kerryon Johnson will be wiped out totally. But like I said, with the injury concerns, I think it's going to be a battle through training camp to see who's going to eventually take that job. I think if they start the year healthy, we may even see like a 50-50 split. But I think someone will eventually, by week 6 or 7, take that job. We'll see who it is. I think it's going to be Swift, but Kerryon Johnson's a talented running back. I mean, I'll take nothing from him. He does have injury concerns, but when he's on the field, he doesn't suck.
No, I agree, and that's why I'm wondering about Swift's production. You take a flyer on this guy in late rounds in your fantasy draft and hope he gets the job, but I don't know if even if the first 8 weeks they're splitting, that really benefits no one. I would say Kerryon's going to get the goal line carries, so you're really getting vultured there. So if you're taking DeAndre Swift in your fantasy draft, you're hoping somehow Kerryon gets hurt or DeAndre Swift just blows everyone away in the preseason, which I don't know if I necessarily see.
I've seen crazier.
Yeah,
but
I mean, sure.
That is what you're banking on. To me, you're taking a late round flyer on him at best to see what happens.
Yeah. Now, Jonathan Taylor, this one kind of interested me because I like Marlon Mack as a player, especially a fantasy player, but he did break his hand last year. It's the hand he holds the ball with. That could always linger. But, again, we talked about it. The guy, my two concerns with Jonathan Taylor are, 1, 18 fumbles in college. He lost 15. That's a problem in the NFL. My second issue is that apparently in high school, he was a bell cow. In college, we know he was a bell cow. So how much mileage is already ripped off this running back by the time he's 21, 22 years old. And we know the history of running backs in this league. Now, obviously his rookie season, I mean, you look at Marlon Mack last year in fantasy, he was, even with missing 3 games with a broken hand, he still was, 15th in points. So,
and he had some he had some big games.
Yeah,
when he was healthy.
1,091 and 9 touchdowns. So, I mean, you give him 3 more games, you're talking probably 1,400 yards. Another, let's just say 2 touchdowns. You're talking 1,410 and 10 touchdowns.
That's not a bad year.
Yeah, I mean, where does Jonathan Taylor fit
in
that offense?
That's RB1 numbers.
Exactly.
I think they're literally going to maybe go 50-50 split. I mean, well, not 50-50. I think Marlon Mack will get more unless Taylor just blows him away, because there are the fumbling concerns. He is young. But I could see Marlon Mack getting hurt, missing a game or 2. And if Taylor is just that guy, not getting his job back.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a plethora. It's just from fantasy purposes, you look at a guy like this and you're not sure if he's worth anything. Marlon Mack is in the last year. He'll be a free agent next year. So that's the only other thing I can think of is why they drafted him so high. If Marlon Mack has another year, like, what do we say it was, 1091, say he has 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns this year, dude's going to want to get paid.
And the Colts ain't paying him.
The Colts, you said they ain't?
No, they're not going to pay him. Not with drafting, Taylor this year. Exactly.
That is true. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, we look at Todd Gurley's already with a new team as well. So,
because here's the difference: they paid him, and then
regretted it immediately. Yeah. Cam Akers. Speaking of Todd Gurley, Cam Akers is now in LA to replace him. I'm a Florida State guy. I loved watching Akers play. I thought he is like a poor man's Dalvin Cook. And it's not a diss to Akers. I just thought Dalvin Cook was just so great in college. Yeah. I think Cam Akers has the tools to be exactly like him in LA.
He's gonna have the chance.
Yeah, it's wide open.
Yeah, wide open. And I think he has the talent to take that job. I think of all the running backs we've talked about so far, to me, he's the dark horse to have that 1,000-yard double-digit touchdown season as a rookie. And
you're right. It's a dark horse, but I mean, like you said, Edwards-Helaire has a competition. Swift has competition. Jonathan Taylor has competition. J.K. Dobbins, who we'll talk about in a second, has competition. This guy has what? Henderson, Darrell Henderson, and Malcolm Brown.
Malcolm Brown.
Yeah, exactly. We can't even remember their names. And I mean, they're going to want.
The only thing is, I think Brown could vulture some goal line carries, but I think this kid could come in, and if he plays up to potential, he'll be the workhorse.
100% agreed. Yeah, and I think you're right. He's set in the best position to be the breakout rookie of the year.
Yeah.
We talked about J.K. Dobbins. Mark Ingram is obviously still there, but he has suffered a big injury at the end of the season. He's getting older, which is crazy to think. He's only been in the league 9 years, but again, running back.
Yeah, but think about it. Running back, when you hit 30 as a running back, it's not like back in the day when you had the Emmitt Smiths running to the 35. 30 as a running back is ancient.
It is now. You're right, especially if you have running backs who are going to want to be paid. But I mean, the rich get richer with this. J.K. Dobbins, I thought, was one of the most dynamic running backs coming out of the draft, and I actually thought he would go third. I thought Swift and Taylor would go, and then I thought Dobbins would be next off the board. He ended up being sixth off the board, fifth or sixth off the board, which was surprising to me. But he goes to the Ravens.
He's in a perfect situation.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens can basically do the Saints offense from 2 years ago, where Mark Ingram's the power back. J.K. Dobbins plays Alvin Kamara. Yeah. I think we're looking at a situation
with Lamar Jackson back there. So.
Yeah, I think we're looking at a situation where J.K. Dobbins is a flex play here, many weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely think with that offense, with Hollywood Brown, with so many explosive players, with Lamar Jackson, like you said, Mark Ingram, he can have some huge plays.
Yeah, I mean, you can't cover them all. And he might be, if they play back, the 2-back set, with Mark Andrews at tight end, Hollywood Brown. They just got Duvernay out of Texas. I mean, you're right. There's so much speed to cover, and you got the quarterback you got to watch for. I mean, I can see at least 2 or 3 swing passes for J.K. Dobbins going 50 yards this year.
Well, and now we're talking about, we know Dobbins is going to split time. But like you said, I think he's the type of player, he can be a weekly flex. But you can get him in around, he may even go undrafted, in most fantasy leagues. But if you want to take a flyer on your last pick of the draft for someone who's going to get work every week, and then if Mark Ingram gets hurt, that's just
like you said, he's 30 years old and suffered a big injury last year.
Yeah, that's just icing on the cake.
I'm looking at J.K. Dobbins in if you're starting 2 running backs in a flex, I'm looking at him as my 4th running back. If you're starting 3 running backs in a flex, I'm looking at him as my 5th running back. I don't know if I'm starting 3, which is not very common in leagues, but I've played in leagues where you start 3 running backs. I would say if you're looking for him in a league that plays 3 running backs, you've got to look for him 12th, 13th round, because running back gets thin. I mean,
now, you have a crapshoot. I mean, you remember everybody last year was in love with Darwin Thompson, who just never really saw the field.
Correct.
And then you have other instances where you get the guy and you get lucky.
Sure, and that's why he's your 5th running back.
True.
I mean, and the thing is it all depends on your the way your draft goes and the way your strategy is, because sometimes you don't get a shot at those top 7 or 8 running backs. If you're picking 10th, you got to go wide receiver, in that spot or something like that. By the time it gets back to you, everything starting might be gone. So J.K. Dobbins in a league where you don't catch one of the top running backs might be your 3rd, and that's where your flex comes in.
Exactly. And like you said, but I think he'll get you points every week. And if it's going to be one of those instances where if there is an injury, it could be a home run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially, like you said, he's the perfect what's the word I'm looking for? Handcuff. He's the perfect handcuff for Mark Ingram.
For Mark Ingram, yeah.
So A.J. Dillon's another running back that was drafted. Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams are both in contract years. The question really always is, in contract years, if your intention is to re-sign the guy, how much usage do you give him? I mean, Aaron Jones had a year and a half last year. I mean, he had 1084.
I had him in a couple leagues.
Yeah, I gave him to you last year.
I know.
16 rushing touchdowns, 3 receiving touchdowns, 1,500 all-purpose yards. I mean, behind Christian McCaffrey, he was it. And he's a lighter version of Chris McCaffrey. The question is, again, usage in a contract year. If the Packers want to keep him, sometimes you minimize the usage to get the guy for cheaper. So where does where does A.J. Dillon fit in this Green Bay scheme? I mean, I don't imagine he's on a fantasy radar for anything other than handcuff purposes.
Yeah, exactly. Because for some reason they like Jamal Williams.
And I think
he can. But to me, there were instances where I watched last year and it was almost frustrating because it was like they wanted Jamal Williams to do more, but Aaron Jones just wouldn't let him. Mm-hmm. It's almost like they didn't believe in Aaron Jones until he just slapped him in the face and was like, here, this is who I am.
I mean, Jamal Williams caught 40 balls and five touchdowns. So.
That is true. So I think, like I said, I don't know what kind of impact he has. If Williams or Jones gets hurt, and Jones has been hurt in the past. Last year was, he played most of the year and he put up some huge numbers. But, the year before that and the year before that, he had nagging injuries.
Right.
So, like I said, I think at this point he's strictly a handcuff.
Yeah, he's got to be. And the question really is even as a handcuff, if Aaron Jones goes down, I mean, we're probably putting Jamal Williams in, right? So, I mean.
Well, I think Jamal Williams thrives at that role. He's not a number 1 running back.
Okay.
I think if Aaron Jones gets hurt, then Dillon can slide into that role and Williams' role doesn't change.
Okay.
Third down back, carries by the goal line. He's gonna get work.
I mean, Dillon's a big boy, 6 foot, 250. That's Eddie Lacy type statistics there.
That didn't work out for him over there, did it?
It worked out really good for 1 year, and that was it.
Yes, and he couldn't stay away from in and out.
It's true. All right, let's look at the receivers here. The two Alabama boys, Ruggs and Judy. Were you surprised Ruggs was the first one off the board?
No, because Oakland, they love speed. They always have.
Yeah.
That doesn't change just because Mayock and Chucky are there. Still the same family running it. To me, I just think what intrigues me most about Vegas, and I'm even though I'm an Eagles fan, I'm very interested to see what the Raiders do. Definitely gonna pull for them. To not draft a quarterback, either they really believe in Derek Carr, or they have more faith in Mariota than most people.
Well, they're both on one-year deals. They're both on 1 year left in their deals. Mariota signed a 1 year deal. Carr has 1 year left in his deal. So I think it's going to be an audition for both of them. Maybe a change of scenery will help Derek Carr. I mean, they drafted 3 wide receivers, including back-to-back in the 3rd round with Bowden and Edwards out of Kentucky and South Carolina. I thought Ruggs and Judy were 1A and 1B. I wasn't shocked that Ruggs went first either.
I wasn't either. You don't run a 4.27 and get overlooked.
Exactly.
It just doesn't happen.
It wasn't that he was going to get overlooked. I thought Judy, of the 3 guys who went early, Lamb, Ruggs, and Judy, I thought Judy was the most polished and best receiver. But then they started some late league injury history and stuff like that. And I think Ruggs might have a solid fantasy football season. Darren Waller's on the map now, so you got to account for him as far as covering people. And Ruggs can take the top off, play the Brandon Cooks role. Yeah, you're right. Can Derek Carr get him the ball? I see probably 800 to 900 yards in Ruggs' future this year.
I do too. I think it's going to be – I think he's the type of person where I think his second and third year will be bigger. I think he's going to have to learn to harness that speed, because I don't think Derek Carr or maybe Mariota has a cannon, but I don't think if it's Derek Carr, he can fully take advantage of everything Ruggs has to offer as far as pure speed. Correct. I think he's going to take a year to learn the ins and outs of the NFL and how to route run. And I think, Gruden will be patient with him. Just used to call him Chucky because when he's with the Eagles. Yeah. But I think he'll take time. I can easily see 500 to 600 yards, 5 touchdowns with some big plays, and maybe 4 of those 5 touchdowns being 50 yards and over.
Yeah, he fits on a bye week replacement. He fits, a wide receiver 3 spot here.
I agree. I definitely agree, because, like I said, Tyrell Williams. What other competition? What else is there? Wide receiver.
Zay Jones probably going to start the year as the starter, but I mean that's nothing jumps off the charts.
But then if you put Ruggs in a slot, I think it's easy. You can manipulate his talents there more, going against a slot corner. So, we'll see how he does it. Gruden's had some time in this league. He's been touted as this offensive genius. Let's see what he does with it. They already have an established running back. I think with that speed aspect, you can't put 8 in the box against Josh Jacobs anymore. So that offense, depending on the quarterback play, could be exciting to watch.
Yeah, most definitely. And another guy who's going to be Ruggs' teammate, that Brian Edwards guy we talked about out of South Carolina. I think this guy is going to be a stud. I've watched him a lot, played against Alabama and the likes of this SEC defenses. Maybe not in year 1, but I think he's got Alshon Jeffrey type talent. He's 6'3", and I know I'm comparing him to Alshon because of the South Carolina connection, but he's long, he's lanky, and in that offense, like we said, what do they have? If you put Ruggs in the slot, this is a guy who, another guy he reminds me of is Keyshawn Johnson. Guy will go over the middle, catch a ball for you, just from what I've seen in the SEC. He's willing,
and they need that because they try to make Tyrell Williams a number 1 receiver, and he's not that. He's a vertical threat.
Well, they got caught with their pants down after Antonio Brown. Let's be honest.
That is true. That is very true. So, but we'll see. They drafted 3 receivers. If they hit on one of the 3 or 2 of the 3, then they're good.
Oh, they're set up. Yeah, for sure. CeeDee Lamb goes to Dallas. This one feels like just a fuck you to the Eagles.
Probably. Even though from the people I talked to, if they really wanted Lamb, they would have went up and got him. I think when they wanted Ruggs was their guy.
Okay.
And when Ruggs went early,
they didn't trade up.
Rager was the next on their list. They had a specific want, and that's what they got.
I haven't. You didn't really give him the endorsement. I haven't heard a single Philly fan have high praises for Jalen Rager.
I don't know him. I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't watch a lot of TCU games.
Right.
Have I looked at the tape? Have I looked at his highlights? Yes. But I will say this, and you can quote me on this. I think Jalen Rager has the most fantasy impact of any receiver this year. Strictly for the fact of with Carson Wentz, you have a legitimate quarterback. He has, of any of the receivers drafted, he has the most consistent quarterback play. And you can argue Dak Prescott
Kirk Cousins,
in Dallas.
Jefferson.
Maybe. But I would take Carson Wentz over Prescott or on top of that, he's going to an offensive system that's already in place. It's no new head coach. Everything's already set in Philly. His dad played for the Eagles. He's familiar with the Eagles family. And
what's the story on Alshon? Is he out in Philly?
Alshon's going to miss at least the first 6 games of the year. He's going to start on the PUP list. He may miss the entire year, but he's getting paid. His contract's guaranteed, so they won't cut him.
Right.
So they're going to keep him on the roster. So he is going to have no impact for a minimum 6 to 8 games, minimum. So, and then you look at that receiver. Everything the Eagles did was all about speed. They have Carson Wentz. They have
Goodwin.
Ultimately the best tight end tandem in the NFL, and Ertz and Goddard. Kelsey is the best tight end in football. Zach Ertz is probably second. And then you put Dallas Goedert, who's a great player. A lot of people don't even know how good Dallas Goedert is, but he's solid. Right. You have Miles Sanders in the backfield. Now they just went all speed. Like I said, Marquise Goodwin, Rager before he ran, the 4.4 at the combine was considered next to Henry Ruggs the fastest receiver in the draft. Then he does this little, virtual pro day, and he runs a 4.28. So where's that speed? Probably somewhere in between. Yeah, I look at the game tape, and the kid's fast.
I mean, based on what you're saying, I mean, with Alshon being out for minimum 6 to 8 weeks, Deshaun Jackson's 31 or 2 and is hurt all the time.
Still fast, exactly.
Sure.
Marquise Goodwin's
but you could look at Jalen Rager as wide receiver. He's 1. Yeah.
100%.
So you could be onto something with the impact that he provides to this team.
Even if Deshaun starts the year, he does what Deshaun Jackson does. Deshaun Jackson is not the crispest route runner, never has been. He knows how to run routes, but he beat you deep. That's what he does. Mm-hmm. He might be, over the past, 10 years, top 3 deep threat in the NFL. He just finds a way to get deep. And Marquise Goodwin's the same thing. Marquise Goodwin's just fast. I mean, he's an Olympic-level track star.
Yeah, I would say your top 3, probably Deshaun Jackson, Will Fuller, and Brandon Cooks. I mean, off the top of my head right there, you're right. Deshaun Jackson fits right in there with the fly route. The fly route.
I mean, and Marquise Goodwin he's the one person. He said he's challenged Tyreek Hill to a race. He says, "I am the fastest man in the NFL."
Well, he was an Olympian, right? Correct or no?
Yeah. Yes. So
right, who has more receiving yards next year out of the 3 guys? CeeDee Lamb, Judy, or Ruggs?
That's a tough one because I think CeeDee Lamb is in a great situation as far as being on a good team, but I think he enters the season as wide receiver 3. So therefore, I don't see. Yeah, but Amari Cooper is going to get fed. Sure. Michael Gallup's established himself. There's no way I see CeeDee Lamb being a 1,000-yard receiver. I don't think he comes anywhere close to that.
Agreed.
And I think as wide open as Oklahoma's offense was, I think it's going to be an adjustment for him to learn the NFL as far as routes and even especially if they put him in a slot. I think Judy probably has the best statistical year, and the only thing that worries me is quarterback play. But I think he steps right in and is wide receiver 2 and has the potential to be wide receiver 1. Yeah. But I think he's more talented than Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton's just established in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, Denver's got a shot to be a pretty good team next year. At least the weapons: Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman, Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. I mean, it's all on Drew Lock right now. Noah Fant, first-round tight end. He's got the skill position players for sure, and they still have a pretty good defense.
That is true, but like I said, quarterback play, we don't know what Drew Lock is going to be.
Well, what we saw of him was pretty decent, though. He had a decent season.
It's a small sample size.
Of course, I mean that's all we've got.
But if he converts it, yeah, I think Judy has the best chance to put up the best numbers because I think he does more. Like I said, I think he's more polished than Ruggs, and I think that in that offense he has a chance to, fill that Emmanuel Sanders role to go along with Courtland Sutton, where he can, be a wide receiver 2 and put up 900 yards and 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, it seems like Judy's got a good position here, but I think Ruggs is definitely in the same spot. I mean, especially if he can take the top off the defense regularly, because Gallup is the guy in Dallas to do that. I mean, I'm not saying CeeDee Lamb can't do it, and Jerry Jeudy, you're right. It's all on quarterback play. I mean, I thought Drew Lock was one of the better quarterbacks to come out of his class, and the only reason he slipped was because of the injury. So we'll see. I mean, it's time for Drew Lock's got all the weapons. It's time for him to shine. Jerry Jeudy just adds to it, and so does KJ Hamler as well. I thought is another good pickup.
That is true, and also, his name's slipping me right now. The kid that went to Pittsburgh from Notre Dame,
Claypool. Yeah,
he's got a good chance. Pittsburgh just churns out receivers for some way. From Emmanuel Sanders to Antonio Brown to Mike Wallace, they just make these dudes. Juju, these guys put up numbers.
Mm-hmm. And this guy's 6'4" as well. So I mean, I love tall receivers. You give me a 6'4" and above, I'll take a flyer on him. Actually, there's been talk that he may even bulk up and take the tight end. Yeah. So I don't know if he's any good at blocking, but their tight end position last year was not very good after Vance McDonald kind of fluttered out.
The quarterback play sucked after Ben got hurt.
Correct. Yeah.
So that was a factor as well. But I mean, I think there's going to be some receivers that put up good production. I'm very interested to see Denzel Mims with the Jets because I liked him a lot. Like I said, I like big. When you have big and fast together with hands, it's an intriguing combination. To see what he does because I'm not sold on Sam Darnold. I'm not. No,
I'm not either.
So
I like Sam Darnold. I think he should be good, but from what I've seen so far, he still looks like he plays scared. So this is the year for him to develop because otherwise I think they may be looking at the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes.
That is true.
Just facts.
Go ahead.
No,
I was saying it's just another USC quarterback that just flames out.
Seems that way. It could be. We'll see. I mean, with Brady out of the picture now, I mean, this is the time to do it. This is what the other 3 teams have been waiting 15 years for him to be gone.
But I think Buffalo has the best team.
Agreed.
Of the remaining 3 that has a chance to try to come at New England.
And I love Singletary next year. I love Singletary. What he did in the limited time he was given, statistically, and now that Frank, for whatever reason, I guess they were trying to get Frank Gore the records. He should not have gotten the ball as much as he did last year.
Oh, Frank. Yeah, I mean, Frank Gore took handoff. He took handoffs from Fran Tarkenton, and he's 87 years old.
That's about right. All right, last couple of receivers in the first and second round that I'm interested in fantasy wise. Justin Jefferson is one. I think he can take the Diggs role over. He's not as polished as Diggs, obviously, but I'm super excited. I thought that's who the Philadelphia Eagles were going to take.
Everyone and their mom thought. And the funny thing is, if you look at the draft, when the Eagles showed Justin Jefferson on the phone like high fiving his family.
Yeah.
And of course, it ended up being that called me from Minnesota, the very next pick. But even they thought the pick was Justin Jefferson. So I just think for what they want, they wanted speed and playmaking ability. And though I think Justin Jefferson, being a little bit taller, coming from a more established program, I just think it's about fit. I think once Ruggs was gone, I told you, I think the Eagles had their mind made up that Rager was number 2 on their board. But like I said, I do think Justin Jefferson has a good year with Minnesota. Will he be Stephon Diggs? I don't think so. Stephon Diggs is a great receiver. I think he will play that role. I think he will be the number 2 receiver on that team. But I don't think he puts up that production. He's not going to give you 1,000 yards like Diggs did.
And that's the thing. I was going to ask you about that.
Not yet. Maybe 2 years from now.
I think he's in prime spot, especially with Stephon being gone, because Stephon could put up 1,000-yard season very easily in Minnesota. I think if he's 70% of Stephon Diggs, as far as statistically, with Adam Thielen's injury history now, I actually like Jefferson to get 1,000 yards this year.
See, 700, maybe, because I think Cousins and Thielen just have a thing.
They do.
And
can't throw him the ball if he's not on the field, though.
True. Dalvin Cook catches a lot of balls out of the backfield. If Thielen gets hurt, then I think Jefferson could have a big year. I definitely think he's talented enough. It just depends on whether he grasps. Because if you look at, he played the slot the majority of times at LSU. Do you move him to the outside, or do you put someone else on the outside and let him start right in the slot?
I think you put him on the outside. I know that he played a lot of slot. He played some outside. I actually saw him firsthand in the Fiesta Bowl against UCF when made that drive down there, where he had 4 touchdowns. He was amazing. I mean, the kid is out of control good. And I know that's only one game. But from what I saw, and the thing is like, we thought Stephon Diggs' production would slip as Thielen progressed. And, I mean, you look at 2016 to 2019, his yardage numbers went up. 849, 903, 1021, 1130. Every year that Adam Thielen got better, Stephon Diggs' numbers got better. So if Justin Jefferson can play that role, I see 1,000 yards in his – I see 1,000 yards in his future here. Again, rookies is tough. If he can adapt to that,
especially at receiver. They usually, there are some anomalies, but a lot of times they take a year or two to get established at the NFL level. I mean,
the last guy they took was Laquan Treadwell, and he did not pan out in the first round.
That is very true.
So, I mean, if you're looking at it right now,
is he still there?
No, I don't think so. Actually, I'm looking at the depth chart right now. I don't see him. So if he's still there, he's way down.
Way down. Yeah.
Their projected number 2 wide receiver right now, if the season starts today, is Tajay Sharp. So the guy from the Titans.
I remember him from the Titans. Yeah.
So I think Justin Jefferson could very easily win the Stephon Diggs role, and put Tajay in the slot, and Kirk Cousins can find him for 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think it's totally plausible to give him Stephon Diggs type numbers. Again, purely prediction right here, but I think he's set up in a really good spot.
Of the first round receivers, I think Jefferson and Rager have the best chance to. If you're going to tell me to pick a receiver that's going to have 1,000 yards out of rookie class, it's going to be one of those 2.
Yeah.
With the situations in place, with CeeDee Lamb already going to a stacked wide receiving core, with like I said, Cortland Sutton being there, and the issue, the questions with Drew Lock, and also Ruggs going. I think either Rager or Jefferson would be the one to get 1,000 yards.
Agreed. Yeah,
I think they're the best situations.
Another guy, and this guy was way down. He was drafted in the 6th round. He was drafted by the Ravens. Another guy, we talked about speed. James Proche out of SMU. A lot of people don't know who he is, but I watched him watching a lot of American Conference football. He was the leading receiver in American Conference history. I think if he's also 6'1", and I know that doesn't mean much, but with Marquise Brown and a lot of small receivers, I think that Devin Duvernay, another one. I think this guy can find his way on the field. I'm not saying he's going to put up 1,000 yards, but this guy could develop into somebody that Lamar Jackson likes. It may be in year 3, but I think this guy's a very dark horse to become a name in 3 years.
Keep my. It's the same thing. The name that rings for me, and not to pick on the Eagles, but Quez Watkins, another 4.3 guy. Ran the second fastest. Third fastest 40 time at the combine. 6'1", played at a small school, but just blazing speed, just super fast. And I think he's the type of person that can catch on. And if with the Eagles wide receiver core being up in the air, I mean, Alshon, like I said, is going to miss the first 6 weeks. That there's no. It's just all question marks. Deshaun Jackson is established, former Pro Bowler, but he played 4 games last year?
Yeah, something like that. He had a hernia, didn't he?
Yeah. Marquise Goodwin, blazing speed, hurt most of the year.
Couldn't see the field a lot either when he wasn't.
Exactly. Whiteside is their second round pick from last year, who sucked last year. Mm-hmm. Big receiver, 6'3", good hands. He's just slow. He's supposed to take that Alshon role, but he hasn't done it. And then the rest is just young speed. Rager, Watkins, and they drafted another kid from Boise State. Every single one of them ran track for their schools. Every single one of them ran under a 4.4.
Well, most receivers getting drafted are running that route or that 40 time. So what separates you is route running and drops. Don't drop the football.
Very true. Well, oh no, we're forgetting about we're talking about Ruggs. Hey, Vegas Raiders, Nelson Aguilar, king of the drops. You never know.
God, yeah. He needs to change the scenery, but he needs to put some stickum on his hands.
Hey, he's probably, besides Williams, he's probably the most established wide receiver they have.
It's true. Yeah, just throw him
a first round pick.
It's true. Yeah, and maybe being back on the West Coast might help him a little bit because he went to USC. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we'll see. Yeah, you're right. That's another player in Ruggs' way from becoming a superstar. All right, let's wrap it up here. Special thanks to John for coming on, talking some fantasy. It's going to be an interesting season if we have one. I'm sure when we're going to have one. When we have one, I guess, is the real question. Yes. A lot of these guys, you're going to see them. I mean, all these guys we talk about, we may not even be talking about them in 2 or 3 years. The NFL lifespan is very short, especially if you're not producing. So hopefully we'll talk about these guys, but fantasy wise, we're hoping to be able to draft them for years to come.
Indeed.
So, all right, John, we appreciate having you on, and hopefully before the fantasy football season now, we'll have a big show.
All right.
Appreciate you guys tuning in. For John, I am Aaron. We will catch you on the next podcast.